Story 1. I was the nice person in this situation. I rented out 3 rooms in my house. I had great roommates. But one moved out while I was out of town, and my boyfriend at the time found a new tenant for me. The new tenant was a nightmare. She kept eating our food and only used the resources we bought. She refused to go to the store for anything. She also didn't bathe or wash her hands. My roommates had to keep toilet paper in their rooms or she'd use it all in one trip to the toilet. I went to the store one day with my daughter who was visiting at the time. We bought a bunch of fresh produce. We took it back to the house and put it all away before going out to dinner with friends. When we came home, I saw the light in the kitchen turn off through the window. We came in the house and saw what looked like blood on the refrigerator door handles. I went to check on my roommate and found bright red handprints, full hand, on the hall door from where she had pushed it open. My roommate eventually answered the door. But when I asked about the strawberries, she just straight-faced lied and said she hadn't left her room. After another week of this BS, I flipped out. I walked in her room and told her to get the fuck out of the house. She claimed that I had to go through an eviction process. I walked to the kitchen and got a bunch of garbage bags. I went back to her room and started shoving all of her stuff in bags. I was screaming at her the entire time. I threw the bags in the yard and told her to call the housing department. But if she didn't get out of my house, I was calling the cops to have her arrested for theft. Both of the other roommates were home at the time. One had only been there a month, and the other had been there long enough that he had taken to calling me mom. He was a refugee who was just learning English. Anyway, the two of them were listening to all of this. The refugee was telling the other guy that mom is really mad. She never yells. She is the nicest person I know. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't raise my voice. I'll do anything to help a person out. But this woman, she got on every one of my nerves. Story 2. I took a lot of shit in school. More than I should have, looking back. I rarely fought if it was my safety on the line. Because I know I can take a few punches, and self-loathing makes self-defense pretty damn difficult. So, I'm in junior high. 8th grade. I've been dealing with bullshit, and I cope by silently fuming, like always. Q, a small kid I'll call Chen. Very nice Chinese kid, always friendly with people. One of the school bullies, who wasn't a small guy by any means, just shoulder checks Chen into a locker hard. I completely lost my shit. Yelled his name, walked up, and when he did that stupid bully, "What are you gonna do" line, I headbutted the ever-living fuck out of his face. I have a flat, kinda broad forehead. Like the broadside of a sledgehammer. He yells fuck, and stumbles back. I grab his shirt and ring his bell with a few rights. Fucked my hand up pretty bad. Also had a knot on my forehead because his nose was sturdier than expected. Plus side, everyone left Chen alone after that. Story 3. I worked at a Mexican grill years ago. The older, quiet dude who always kept to himself but was basically pleasant just lost it one day. He was chopping chicken to put on the line when one of the line employees called out 86 chicken. The guy loses it. I'm already fucking making chicken. He throws the chopping knife sideways at the wall, and the tip of it sticks. He pulls it out and throws it again, towards the line, narrowly missing an employee. The knife lands in the barbecue sauce, splattering juices all over. Then he calmly took off his gloves and apron and left. Story 4. The quiet one in our college was a tiny, sweet and harmless, always smiling girl. She was kind to everyone, and stupid people mistook her for weak because she just walked away when being picked on. One day the local bullies were chasing after the campus cat with hockey sticks, and as they ran by her table, she let out an inaudible sound of anger, stood up and smacked her flat tray right into the first one's face with force. He smashed backwards into the ground, and the other ones crashed right into him. While she calmly sat back down with a smile and watched the cat run away. They were too startled to react for a while, and when one of them finally started to yell at her, she just stared him down with the most murderous look in her eyes. They left and she never got bothered by them again. Story 5. In high school, my former good friend, we grew distant after school ended, was in the lunchroom talking to his group of friends. I was nearby with my group of friends. One of the dudes in his group of friends decided to crack a joke about my friend's mom in front of him, which got my friend really quiet. What most might not have known is that his mom was a recovering drug addict and a single mother of 2 boys. The husband decided to skip out of child support and move back to his home country in Brazil. She did a lot of work to get clean and raise her kids to be better than she or their dad was, and both her sons and I respected her for it. Suffice to say, my friend didn't like wisecracks against his mom, joking or otherwise. I don't even remember what the comment specifically was, just that I had never seen my friend's face get so red so fast. I looked over at him in time to see him dive across the table and absolutely destroy the dude. There wasn't even a fight, it was just a one-sided massacre with my friend swing repeatedly from above. Took 3 teachers to break it up and a few more to get him out of the room. He got suspended for 3 days and it tanked his reputation with all his teachers, which used to be pretty high before then. I still feel bad about it years later too, nicest guy you'd ever meet, but that moment led him into fighting with a lot of students on other occasions. He ended up being held back a year from failing his classes too, so that one fight essentially ruined his future single-handedly. Story 6. In middle school in my 7th grade math class, this one girl was picking on me, the quiet kid, because I lived in an apartment complex and not a house. Normally I just ignored her or anyone who messed with me. I was bullied a lot and to the point anything I said was used against me, so usually I was mute 98% of the time. Except I guess I was having a really bad day because I spoke up, and 1, told her to shut up, and 2, I didn't need to take this from someone who couldn't compete with a pancake for bust size, or something worded similar. I knew she was self-conscious about it because I'd walked out of the bathroom stall to see her jamming toilet paper down her bra. She stopped picking on me after that. Story 7. When I worked behind the counter at a gourmet deli in a natural foods grocer, there was a day where this one lady had been served a piece of fish by another employee. I hadn't been a part of this transaction, however I was the one who helped her, when she returned to the counter, to complain about the fish. She handed the box back to me, saying, "Hi, I asked for a piece of the halibut from the hot case, and this is a piece of chicken," not knowing that she was off her fucking rocker. I took her at her word and replied with, "Okay, sure, I'm sorry for the mistake, let me help you out." I took the box that her food was in and prepared to grab her some halibut, but thought maybe I should check the inside of the box just to see what happened. I peek in there, and what do I find other than a piece of halibut? At this point, as gently as I can, I tell her, "Ma'am, I'm happy to grab you another piece of fish, but it's only going to look like the one you've got right here, because this is indeed a piece of." At this point she cuts me off and starts screaming at me, "Don't tell me that's a piece of fish. If you tell me that's a piece of fish, I'm gonna be so mad, I'll spit in your face." This lady was old and disheveled looking, so I decided to take her at her word and retreat from the situation as quickly as possible. Grabbed her another piece of fish, and told her sweetly that I hoped her day continued to be as wonderful as it had clearly been. Flagged down a manager who followed her around the store to make sure she didn't break steal shit, as she proceeded to walk through the store ranting loudly and profanely about how nobody respects her, and how she wanted to spit in my face. Seriously, you meet the weirdest fucking people working in a grocery store, especially an upscale hippie one. Story 8. There was a kid in school named Davis. There was another kid named Blake. Davis was big, Blake was not. Blake liked to jump on Davis's back, and Davis would always swing him off in a playful way. One day, Blake jumped on Davis's back as usual and latched on. Davis snapped. He screamed Blake as he grabbed Blake by his hands and aggressively flipped him over his head and slammed him onto the pavement. Blake was stunned, and his attempt to stand back up was fruitless, as Davis began to repeatedly and ruthlessly kick Blake while he was down. We all just watched. We were in shock. We didn't help, we just watched. Eventually, a teacher stopped the beating. Davis got suspended, and Blake, somehow, ended up being okay. They were friends again the next week. Story 9. One of my best friends is the quiet kid at our school. One day, a couple other girls were talking and one of them said, "What's she gonna do? Cry to her mommy?" And another said, "Sorry honey, the baby needs my attention right now. Her mother and brother were killed in a car accident last year." My friend overheard the girls and went over and punched one in the face and proclaimed, "At least my mother loved me, bitch." She then took the second girl's tray and dumped it all over her. One of the teachers saw everything and heard what the girls said. My friend got off with just a detention. Story 10. She was in my class being bullied by some guys. One day they kept throwing around her stuff until she just stood up and knocked out that boy with the book he was trying to get his hands on. It was that very moment our teacher was walking into class, and the boy who fell tried to start a huge drama to get this girl in trouble. But our teacher was amazing. She just said, If you don't want to get hit, stop harassing others so they don't have any choice but hitting you. Story 11. I lifted a girl off the ground by her hair and told her never to mess with me again. I was 5'8" and 13 years old. The girl had been bullying me for years at that point. I was the quiet kid who just read a lot, liked gaming, and had severe social anxiety. She purposely bumped into me on the way out of a classroom. By that point, she had pushed me out of my friend group and replaced me, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I snapped and literally saw red. Like, literally. It was like a red film fell over my vision and I had no control over my actions. She was a few inches shorter than me, but had curly, poofy hair. So, I picked her up by it and told her, "Don't come near me ever again," and then dropped her like the piece of trash she was. I proceeded to walk to my next class and have a total breakdown, crying. I didn't get in trouble because the teachers much preferred me over her and knew I would never do something like that unless pushed to the breaking point. Plus, when you're bawling about how you didn't mean to do that and you were just so desperate to make her go away, you get a lot of sympathy. I don't regret it, and she never messed with me again. Edit, thank you for the silver.